It is January 10th here in the U.S. We're now 3 months removed from that just horrific attack by Hamas on those primarily civilians in Israel back on October 7th here. A lot of questions here about when the war could potentially resolve, but more importantly, how the companies and the economy is doing over there in Israel.
Yeah, and no end in sight, as you suggest. And obviously, it's a tragedy for everyone involved in Gaza and otherwise, but also has some economic effects, particularly on the so-called startup nation. As we know, so much of the Israeli economy is dependent actually on tech startups. So we check in from time to time with somebody who knows this terribly well. He's Jon Medved, OurCrowd founder and CEO. He's the most active venture capitalist in Israel. And we asked him exactly where we stand this far into the war.
We're now 3 months into the war, and what we predicted would happen has happened, which is the initial reaction is that markets are afraid when we go to war, the shekel and the stock market drops. But I think I was actually with you, David, just a few months ago at the beginning of the war, and I predicted that we would have a very fast recovery, and that is what has happened. Turns out that the shekel is now, fully back to where it was, actually better than where it was before. The stock market has made up all of its losses, and the startups themselves are really using a lot of grit to be resilient, and that means to make sure that they can deliver. There's been a slogan here: Israel Tech delivers no matter what. And people are working very hard, and the startup community, I think, is weathering the storm well.
Give us a sense of that storm and no matter what's involved in that, because I saw there was a report out of a startup nation that said actually tech startup money had really gone down year over year. So what's being done to supply that money?
It turns out that the startup community in Israel in 23 ended up still raising $7 billion. Now that was down from about 15 billion the year before, and down again from 21, where it was 25 billion. So it's a significant drop, but it's more or less in line with the global trends. And now the question is, what are we going to do as we come out of the war, God willing? And are these startups going to join in the overall recovery, which I foresee going to affect the global venture market?
And an important aspect of this, as you and I have talked about before, is the so-called runway for the startups. How far out can they go? There's some concern that that runway has now gotten extended to some extent because of the war in part. And talk to us about the resilience fund that you've been involved in putting together to try to help with that problem.
Well, as soon as the war broke out, we decided that we had to take action and to raise a special fund that would enable companies to extend their runway, right? In other words, startup companies, by and large, are not profitable. They need investment in order to get to their goals. And the problem, of course, is that in war, it's not always the easiest time to get this investment. So we created a vehicle. We announced it about 2 months ago. And literally in these 2 months, we've managed to get to our first closing. We're now at $15 million of commitments. But more importantly, we've made actually 18 different investments in companies where we're choosing companies that have been affected by the war because they have team members who are in the service, they are on border zones like in the north or the south, or that they somehow are providing critical technology for the war effort. So these 18 companies have been very carefully selected. We've done the diligence. They run through our investment committee, and we act as sort of a catalyst to bring additional money from both investors alongside of us, both inside the company and new investors, as well as the government, who is providing matching funds.